That button. There we go.
Did you get
Now, yeah, we're going.
Okay. Oh, good.
My bad.
He's pushing all the buttons today and nothing's happening. Hi. I hope everybody's having a great Saturday. It looks like it might shape up to be a nice day. What?
Big yellow bar.
Awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. You're so sweet. You can see that puppy fun grow a little bit. I'm thinking.
And celebrate their 20th super chat on live stream.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, something I have to do today that I frequently neglect to do, but I'm Tracy. I had someone mention the other day that I don't introduce myself when I pop up on the live feeds, but I'm Tracy Morrow, and I have a art and craft problem.
It's not supposed to be an AA meeting.
And my problem is that I love to do this, and it gets me into a whole bunch of trouble from time to time. So if you are new to this channel, thanks for joining us. We're going to have a lot of fun. The creative crazies that you find in the chat window over here are, without a doubt, some of my favorite people. They are just amazing. They are insanely creative. They also follow on the Tracy Morrow Live page and in the Tracy Morrow Live group page. And we have giveaways and contests, and we just have a lot of fun on there. And everybody shares their artwork, and we get to see just how amazingly creative everybody is. So even if you think you don't have a creative bone in your body, come and join us, because it rubs off, I promise. So today it's contagious. It is contagious. Today we're going to be painting Pickin flowers for Mama. I don't know. I've had this idea rolling around in my head for quite some time. And I have no idea why, what stirred it, what have you. But the idea of a little kid bringing their mama flowers, and then, of course, bringing along with it a makeshift vase. The tin can just sort of has been floating around in my imagination for a while. So that is how this one came to be. But I wanted to use this one to take the opportunity to come back to some basics, talk about some very basic techniques and methods that are used in decorative painting and in painting in general. And one of those things is brush control. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. And I'll show you a few simple tricks and some fun techniques, and I think you're going to enjoy this. It is not a difficult paint. It is a little bit fun. It is a lot of fun, but it does have a few layers and a few steps. So if you guys are ready to paint today, get those brushes wet, and we're going to start painting shortly. Why are you looking so puzzled? An empty space. What's missing? Is that your subtle way of saying that I've neglected to tell everybody what the giveaways are for today?
Yeah, where are they?
You idiot.
Use your words.
Yes, please do. Oh, my goodness. Okay, the giveaways for today are really cool. We've got a gorgeous limited edition mechanical pen set from Mechanical Pen. It comes with a few other little goodies as well. Or pencil, sorry. English is the second language today.
Both of us.
For both of us, apparently. Well, at least I can speak. So, coherently, sometimes. Okay, again, the giveaways for today are a beautiful limited edition mechanical pencil from Tombow, and it comes with a few other little things. We have a cool little create bag for you as well, something you can store all of your creative goodies in, and as well as a few other fun things. So we have some brushes from Dynasty in there. We have that awesome mechanical pencil and a wonderful mono eraser from Tombow. And it's a limited edition. They've put out these fabulous little sets in a variety of colors, and they're just awesome. And I love the Tombow mechanical pencil. I use mine daily, so it is a really nice thing to have in your creative arsenal. So that is what our giveaways for today are. And did you have anything to add before we get brushes wet?
No.
No?
No, I'm good.
No push to get them to help out with the puppy fund? I know I got an email this morning from our beloved shelter. They have taken in 800 dogs. 800 dogs since December.
Wow.
And they're expecting to go over 1,200 by the end of the year.
Jeez.
So they've had their hands full this year. They've also created, because times are really tough, they've also created a puppy food and kitty food food bank at the shelter, so that locals that are really struggling don't have to worry about feeding their animals. So they've created that as well. So it, I think, is a really great idea. And they've had tremendous support from some of the local pet suppliers as well. So it's awesome. And so I think that our puppy fund is really going to help make a difference in that regard. So if you guys are ready to get started, so am I. Does the top down button work?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does. So this is the one we're painting today. This is such a fun piece to paint because it is not all that difficult, but I wanted to show you some really neat techniques for creating leaves and for creating flowers that are a little out of the ordinary. This one is, I would put it at about a 2 as far as difficulty goes. It's not a super difficult piece. And we are going to cover some very basic techniques. Obviously, there's some stenciling back there. We are going to talk about doing the lettering and some line work. We're going to talk about 2 major techniques for this piece. And one is comma strokes. So we're going to talk about the comma strokes because we're going to be using those for the flowers as well as the leaves. And then we're going to talk about dry brushing and how to create some really nice highlights and shadows and textures using dry brushing. So simple techniques, but we're going to have a lot of fun with it. There's Patsy Justice. Hello, Patsy. And Sharon Shod. Hello. And who else? Becca Buckner. Hello, sweetheart. Oh my goodness. Kelly. Albright Cave. Carrie Henderson. Deb Pels. Oh my goodness. Janet Roach and Jackie Gibson. Hi, ladies. I could sit here all day and just go through this list and say hello to everybody.
Be here all day.
I'd be here all day. Hi, Sue. Awesome. Oh, peanut butter cookies fresh out of the oven. Now you've done it. Thanks loads there, Sue. Hi, Sandy. And who else is here?
Speaking of soup pods, did we ever get confirmation about naming a cat on soup?
Nope, haven't heard anything. Oh my goodness, 52 people killed by Hurricane Helene. Wow, that's terrible. Peanut butter cookies.
Oh, Sandy Burton's
Rich,
apple pie filling.
Rich wants to know if I've hung my wreath. Not yet, but it's going up shortly. I haven't changed out most of my summer stuff yet, so.
There's a rule.
There's a rule. What's the rule?
Nothing goes up until after Remembrance Day.
My wreath is for the fall, not for Christmas.
Okay. Just saying.
I know. I'm aware of the rule.
The rule is...
The rule is the rule.
The rule is the rule.
Yeah. So this is the piece we're going to be working on. The surface for this one is an 8 by 10. I'm using a profile canvas, a stretch canvas. I kind of like it. This one is fun to do. I haven't worked on canvas in a little while. I've always been working on wood or on MDF, but I'm really liking the canvas these days, primarily for some of the textures. Renee needs a mic. Yes, Unfortunately, one of the mics is not working, and we've run out of plugs for everything. That's been our biggest issue. So one of the things we do need had to take over one of the plugs for the other mic. So certain things get sacrificed to make things run. Corinna, hello Corinna, how are you? Hope all is well in Nova Scotia. So the first thing we're going to start with here is our tin can. And the color that I'm using for this is called Red Spice. I like this color. It's a spicier version of burnt sienna. That's the best way I can describe it. It's a little more opaque than burnt sienna. And I'm going to use, I've got a scruffy old round brush. I like using that. And we're going to base coat. Now, the thing about this color, it is not very opaque. But, especially on black. But this is going to work in our favor, believe it or not. And again, I'm kind of following the shape of this can. It's a little curved. I love this color, and I really wanted to create sort of that look of, you know, the old tin can that's been laying around outside since time out of mind. That's what I wanted. And so we're going to start with that rusty brown look. It does not need to be fully opaque, so don't kill yourself trying to get it that way, because it doesn't need to be. There we go. Such a pretty color. You can't call it an orange. Well, I suppose you could, but it isn't really orangey. It's more rusty. There we go. Love this color. Looks great. There we are. Great color. So I'm going to dry this really quick. And then I'm going to have a quick look and see if it needs another coat. Might put one more on it just to get it a little more even. I'm not so much worried about the opacity, but I would like to see it a bit more even. There we go. It's a pretty color. It's a great tone for this. I like that when this dries, it takes on a very muted feel to it. It's a nice color. And it's got all that warmth that I want. You know, nice warm tone. I was very happy to see that a lot of our friends and members of my group are safe and well after Helene went through. Terrible storm. But I'm grateful that so many of you are okay. And hopefully that gets like the worst of the storms out of the way. That would be nice. There we go. That's a little bit better. As I said, it doesn't need to be perfectly opaque, but I did want it a little more even. It wasn't quite as even as I'd like. There. Okay. So I'll dry that. Now, the first thing we're going to do is establish the shadows on the left and the right side. Now, our light impact is, I went with a very simple light source, something straight at it. So it just makes things a little easier to see. Make sure our paint is good and dry. Now, our shading color for this is asphaltum. I know that you're very surprised by that. So, good old asphaltum. And I'm going to use a 1/2 inch angled shader. I picked wildflowers for my mom 85 years ago, and she put them in a little crystal vase in the middle of the table. I remember when I was a kid, we would pick flowers for Grandma, and she always put them in a teacup on the windowsill. That's my obsession with teacups. Oh, my stars. So we're going to put shadows under the flowers and down the left and right side of this piece. We're going to do that with a nice float of asphaltum. Asphaltum works so well with this red spice. It's a really great shading color. Really great. So I'm going to dry that. And I'm going to do it one more time because it's not quite dark enough yet. There we go. The nice part about doing all of this first is that when we put the leaves and the flowers in, it's going to give us a nice clean finish. Now, there we go. So, shadow, you're going to put a nice float of asphaltum down the left side. And you'll notice right at the bottom here, there's a little narrow band that's separate from this. We're going to put a float in there, just above it. You see, it's just above this little line. That's the lip of the can. So that little shadow is going to be about 1/2 inch at the most down that side. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Little float in behind that flower. Don't forget our flower there. Also about 1/2 inch wide. So, we've got that first shadow in. Now, you might have noticed, you see all of those horizontal lines that come in on our can. I'm going to just use a chalk pencil to quickly sketch those in. You can see the lines on the line drawing. So each of those spaces is roughly 1/4 of an inch. Doesn't mean you have to break out the ruler. They don't have to be perfect either. But roughly 1/4 of an inch. There. So those are the ridges that are in our can. You know, the old coffee can, soup can label. So those ridges, that's what those lines indicate. So we're going to switch to a smaller angled shader. I'm using a 3/8. The only reason I switch is so that I get a smaller space. I have a little more control in a smaller space. And Easterling. You can get these ones off of Amazon. This is called a Bohin, France. It's actually a dressmaker's tool. And it is an absolutely fabulous chalk pencil. This is a super fine, I think it's a 0.7 or a 0.8. It's absolutely great. I do have another one kicking around somewhere. It's a bit bigger. It also has a stylus in it, but I'm very partial to this one. This is a Bohin, and I got this one off of Amazon. And if I'm not mistaken, this is also available from Chris Hoy at cdwood.com. I think she also stocks them. And I know that Patricia Rawlinson website also stocks them. So they're not difficult to find. They are an absolutely exceptional chalk pencil. So works really, really well. So I've got my smaller angled shader, and I'm going to pick up a little asphaltum and we're going to put, I'm going to stand my brush on the chisel edge, and right where that chalk line is, I'm going to put a line of asphaltum. And now you could do this with a round or an angled shader. You just don't want to do it with a liner because it needs to be a little thicker. It needs to be a little thicker than it would be with a liner. So a small round. I like to use the chisel edge of my angled shader. This part's really easy. All you gotta do is trace that line that you went to so much trouble to put in. And it doesn't have to be perfect. This is a tin can, a rusty old tin can. So it is not necessary that it be absolute perfection. So this is what you're going to end up with. A whole bunch of irregular lines going horizontally across the front of your can. Ghost Rider is a good one too, Debbie. Yep. So I'm going to dry this real quick. And I'm going to, let's see, where did it go? I'm going to grab my dry brush. So the colors that I have on my palette are as follows. I am using a little bit of Canyon Orange and some Orange Flame. We're going to start with the Canyon Orange, because it's about 2 values lighter than. So I'm using a Mezzaluna. This is a medium to a large, whichever one you're most comfortable using. And I've loaded it up with a little bit of that Canyon Orange. And we're going to, in between those lines, you're going to dry brush until it touches the shading that you've just done on each row. And yes, it's going to overlap that line, and it's okay. But that highlight should just touch the shadow on the left and the right. And yes, it's okay if it overlaps the line. There we go. So you just continue to do that in the center of each of those lines, those rows. Look at. So we've got, look at that. Put that first highlight in. Great. Renee is sending me text messages now. He's out training maze. So there, all the way to that edge on both sides. And yes, it does cover up some of those lines. So then we're going to set a little bit of that orange flame. I know it's a ridiculously hot color. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of orange flame. And we're going to add that to the center. And it gets a little bit smaller. It doesn't go quite edge to edge. It's just going to be in the middle. A little bit. And I'm going to grab some warm white. Because we're going to make a slightly lighter value of this. Just a little. And pick up just a tiny bit of white. I just want to lighten the value of this a smidge. So this next one gets a little bit lighter. And it's almost dead center. So it gets a little bit lighter still. So we're going to continue to lighten that little bit of orange flame. It gets a little bit lighter and a little bit smaller each time. So if it was, 3 inches, the first one goes out to here. The next one gets a little narrower. The next one gets a little narrower, and the next one gets a little narrower. So we're going to end up with our brightest highlight right in the center, right there. And it's a little dry brush highlight dead center on each row. And they're all roughly going to be the same size. Just like that. And then for that final highlight, that's the thing to keep in mind. Dead center. Keep them all in line and all roughly the same size. just like that. So we're going to take that angled shader, because now we need to make this really dimensional. I'm going to use angled shader and a little bit of that asphaltum. There is a vertical line about a 1/2 inch in from the edge. I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to follow the shape of those ridges in the can, just a little. So I've put a float right there and created a seam in the can. You can see it in the line drawing. So I'm going to dry this, and then I'm going to use a liner and a little bit of that warm white and a little bit of that orange, that canyon orange. Whoops. Because it needs just a fine line on some of those areas, just as a little highlight. It's not much, but just enough to contrast that seam. And then we're going to put a highlight on the top of the ridge of that can. It's just a little one. So we've got nice highlight in there, but we need to balance this a little bit. So we're going to use a little bit of lamp black. I'm going to thin it out a little bit. I don't want this full strength, but I need to darken the outer edge of this shadow just a little. Whoop. And along the bottom. Miss May's starting to kick the door down. So up underneath those leaves, underneath that flower, I need a darker shadow. So I'm just going to deepen it a little. And then I'm going to deepen the shadow on this side as well. Just a little. It's going to be a narrow float. It does not need to be much. But that darkening of that shadow makes a world of difference to the dimension that you get and the depth that you get with this can. So by putting in that black shadow, and it's just a small one, it creates that illusion that there is that it's completely circular. Gives you that nice round cylindrical look to your tin can. This little seam here just adds an element of texture to it. Just helps make it a little bit more realistic having that seam there. So I'm going to dry this real quick. We may come back and deepen shadows. We may come back and brighten highlights depending. We'll adjust as we go. So our next step for this is to build up these leaves. I always like to work from the back forward. So we're going to build up some leaves. And I have a fun technique for doing leaves that I've been wanting to show you. So I'm going to grab my black paper. I have a pad of black. I keep my Artigan paper handy because we're working on a black background. And I want to be able to show you clearly how these leaves are painted. So I've got have a nice big round brush. Oh, yeah, I do. There it is. I've got a little bit of lush green. So I'm going to just quickly base coat a leaf because I want to explain how this technique works. Because it's a nice technique. It creates really nice leaves. But it is technique driven. So I'll dry that real quick. So this technique relies on comma strokes. So here we have a leaf. Now I could shade down the center of this, add a highlight and whatnot, the way I normally do. It's not a, but I have a really neat technique. So I'm going to use a chalk pencil just to indicate where that center vein would be. You would see it in your line drawings, but I'm just going to put it on here. And I'm going to use a small round, and in this case I'm using a number 3. And our highlight color, which is Margarita. So I'm going to use a little bit of Margarita for this. Now I'm going to load this round, and we're going to use a comma stroke. Now, comma stroke is simple. You use a round brush, press down, open the brush up, curve, and then bring the brush back up onto its point. That's a comma stroke. This brush is a little wonky, but it's all good. So we're going to use comma strokes to develop some depth and dimension to these leaves. Now I put that center vein in there for a purpose because that's going to be the guide for our comma strokes. So in this leaf, I'm going to start just before that line, and I'm going to put in a comma stroke, and I'm going to leave a space and put in a comma stroke. And each comma stroke comes down until it just shy of the edge of the leaf. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Just like that. The fun part about this is these do not have to be perfect comma strokes. So this is what you're going to have, and you can still see that center vein area, that line that I put in the middle. So you can see that that's where your target is. That's where your stroke starts, and it ends out here at the edge of the leaf. So that's the method that we're going to use to create the leaves on this piece. And I'm going to keep this handy because as we go through these smaller leaves, and the reason I did this here is because it's hard to see it on camera. So we're going to base coat our little leaves, and they are little, I know they are, with a little bit of that lush green. I like this technique for these leaves. It just gives them a little extra dimension and really nice shape. It just makes them so pretty. And it's a fast and simple way to do a leaf that gives you a little bit more realism. And it is based on a Zostava technique. I just base coated this leaf the wrong color. Hello. Easy peasy. The nice part, and what appeals to me about this particular technique, is that you don't need to have an absolutely perfect base coat, because you're going to be overstroking a lot of this. You don't have to kill yourself to get it done. Da-da-da. Hi, Kay. Here we go. This won't take long. Leaves, 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 and more leaves. Sometimes I wonder why I put so many in. But it's all good. Just a couple more to do. Am I planning any conventions next year? I am, if I can find time to get some submissions done. That's been my biggest issue, is finding the time to get submissions done. Here we go. So, one of the sad parts about getting submissions ready is the unreliability of airlines lately has just been horrendous. And travel is really not as easy as it used to be. I'd love to come to Net. Net's an easy one because it's just in Boston. It's easy. It's a quick flight. It's not a hard one to get to. Getting to places like Oklahoma, as much as I have such a great time when I'm there and I love the people there, it is not an easy place to get to for me because of where I live. So, alrighty. So I've got leaves base coated, and all of these bigger leaves are the ones that we're going to use this technique for. So I'm going to load up my round brush, and for me, this has always been the easiest way to do this, is establish where your center vein is. That's always the easiest thing, just so that you have a guide. It does not have to be perfect, but it gives you a great deal more control when you know where to start. If I go to Net, I'll drive there. Oh, wow. So there's my little comma strokes. And remember what I said, they don't have to be perfect, nor do they even have to be complete. If you can see. Now, because all of these ones are tucked in, we don't have as much showing. So we don't have to have them complete, if you see what I mean. They don't have to be perfect. And I love that it adds some light to these right off the bat. You get lots of cool bright highlights. but it helps create shape. Defines these leaves really nicely. So I'm going to set that aside to dry because now we have to talk about shading these leaves. The color for the leaf, the highlight color is for that stroke work is Margarita. Which is that bright lime green. Our shading color for these leaves is black green. You can use plantation pine. I like black green or plantation pine. Just needs to be a nice dark, transparent green. That's all. And I'm a fan of black green. It's just got that deep shading color to it. It's great. So, oh God, got water everywhere. So for the shading on this, you're going to float at the base of the leaf, like so. Nice dark float up at the base of the leaf where it joins the stem. It's a U-shaped float. Comme ça. So that float just helps establish a curve going back. The comb stroke color is Margarita. Oh, I'd love to get a hug. So I've got that first shading in, that nice little shadow at the back of the leaf. Now we're going to put a shadow down the center vein. So darkest value to the edge of the leaf, or to the center of the leaf. And it would help so much if I had moisture in this brush. There we go. There, much better. Hi, Mace. Hi, baby. What you doing? Watch it. She's just happy to be here. And then, again, down the center vein. So let me lift this up a little bit. So you get nice curvature. See the bend in the leaf? Nice dimension.
Hi, Magnus.
And we'll dry that. So that when we come back to put in those highlights, it's going to accentuate that big time. So set that aside, and we're going to work these little guys. Now, remember what I said, that U-shaped float, because it's underneath these leaves, there we go. Easy peasy. And I do the same thing. Remember that U-shaped float out towards the end of the leaf where it joins the stem.
Linda Sifranco says, Tracy, it's been 8 years since we've been together. We need to get together at a convention soon.
I agree. Do not disagree. I miss my peeps. Just gotta avoid getting the shingles again. So I'm going to just give one more float in here. There we go. we are. So that little float of that black green underneath the petals and at the base of the leaf, this just provides us with a little more shape and a little more dimension. So I'm going to dry this real quick, and then we're going to do a shadow down the center vein to give them the structure.
Hello, beard man.
No shingles. No, no, no. You will be able to donate to the Puppy Fund via my website shortly. I just haven't gotten the widget up.
Speaking of puppy, what are you doing?
Miss Mays is investigating.
Snooping.
We should have called her Snoopy.
No, that's what you call a black and white beagle.
Is it? Okay. Aw, Bev, that's so sweet. Thank you. I would have much rather have been with you guys than to be dealing with shingles. Thanks very much. So, there's my shadow down the center vein. And one last one right here. And that shadow is what sort of establishes, significant shape to these leaves. They now have that nice roll, that turn, and that fold. So we need to put a highlight on these leaves. And this is what I like. I'm going to take a little bit of margarita, and I'm just going to put just a touch of warm white in it. Not necessarily to make it significantly brighter, but I'm going to pull a float of that warm white down to the point, and then I like to pull a little up the back edge. And I do the same thing on this side. And all it really does is just helps create sort of a little serrated edge to the leaf. So it gives you a really nice bright highlight, but it cleans up any little raw edges that you may have. Oops.
Oh, yeah. Not.
What's that?
Cindy was wondering that bottom leaf.
Yes,
Missing a center line.
I am. Good eyes. No kidding, they see it from there. I can't see it from here. There we go.
And she was wondering, does the bottom leaf need a center line, or did I miss you doing that one?
Nope, you did not miss me doing that one. Good eye, Cindy. What the? So, we're going to take that highlighting method into here. So, little bit, and I do mean just a little bit of warm white. It just barely changes the value of that green. Of course, I blended all the paint right out of the brush. That was smart.
What was it that Tyrion Lannister said?
I don't know. What
I
did
drink and I know things.
I drink and I know things, yeah. So, nice little highlight. Now, the nice part about this is as you're doing this highlight, if your shading gets a little bit muted, you can come back in and deepen it. I don't ever think of any of these things as done until everything is balanced.
Debbie's wondering what's for dinner.
It's for dinner tonight, chicken pot pie.
I like pie.
I know. Yeah, I know.
I'm usually not a fan of pot pie.
No, I know, but you do like my chicken pot pie.
Yes. It's tasty.
Mm-hmm. So that little highlight, especially when you bring it back up along the bottom edge there, it just gives your leaves a nice sharp point. And then I'm going to show you a really cool technique for really making these leaves pop.
Getting into the autumn recipes.
Yes. Comfort food, warm and cozy food.
Hearty food.
Hearty food, yep.
Fill you up, warm you up.
Yep. Well, I'd have some good to your ribs now. I make a pretty good chicken pot pie, even if I do say so myself.
I have a challenge for you.
Oh?
Yeah. Goofy accent speaking French.
Newfie accent speaking French. Okay. Bonjour, right? So, and then that same highlight color that we used, you can use to do the highlights on these other small leaves. And I just, again, much like the U-shaped float, just take it out to the point. Like so.
Lay down.
Good girl. Clunk. You must have had her out playing with the ball.
Well, Dad was playing with her, and he's been trying to get some kindling cut,
Oh,
so I took over.
okay. She's a handful. Ball is life. Comes to Maze, ball is life.
She has a pretty high prey drive.
Yep. And a pretty high energy level. So we've got a nice little highlight on all of those leaves. Now, one thing I like to do is sharpen some of the shading. So I come back to this one again with a little bit of that just thinned black green. These shadows, these little lines here can get a little muted when you put that highlight in. And so they get a little lost. And sometimes you just need to come back in and put a float of the thinned black over top just to help define those leaves that much better. So it can get a little boring and a little mundane. Let's call it mundane. When all of the leaves look exactly the same. So you don't want to do that. So I'm a big proponent of bringing a little bit of reflected color in. It doesn't always have to be the color from the flowers. It can be the color from things that are around it. So in this particular case, I'm going to use the color from the can and bring a little of that rusty color into our leaves. Just a little. It can be in the point. It could actually be on the highlight. It can be a little bit just at the edge of the leaf in a couple of spots. Or it can be a wash of color.
Shannon B. Riley.
Hi, Shannon.
Friend of mine just rescued a Belgian Milan.
A Malinois.
I'm guessing Malinois.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry for spelling. Oh my god, it's a handful.
Should we get it a buddy?
Should we get it up, buddy? No.
Don't do that.
You're just encouraging more play.
Yeah. They are a handful.
Yeah, they require a lot of work.
Yep. Good training, regular exercise, and puzzles.
Yeah,
Keep-
puzzles.
Keep their brains busy.
The last thing you want to do for any dog is get it a buddy because
It's too hyper.
it's too hyper.
What is this? I thought Maze yesterday was grooming it. She was grooming a Belgian Malinois. He's finally learning to behave, but he still pinched a bruise on me with his teeth. Oh, he's kissing you.
I'm giving you love bites.
Those are love bites. I was covered in those love bites for months. Wasn't I, Maze? She still gets me every once in a while.
You gotta hold on to one of your memory boards.
My what? Oh, the emery boards.
Emery boards.
Emery.
Keep saying memory boards.
So we're going to bring a little of that reflected color into these leaves. And it's just a little, but it does help make the leaves a little more interesting. And then they look different from each other. They don't all look exactly the same. That little bit of reflected color goes a long way. And it can be just a tiny little patch. If you want to bring a red, if you're going to have red in your piece at any point, bring a little red into the leaves. That always seems to just give them a little interest and a little texture at the same time.
Gail's wondering if I'm going to rescue the female at your local shelter. The 10-month-old Belgian Mal that was found roaming the streets?
Oh, it was tempting.
It was very tempting, but one is more than enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was already a note saying no cats.
Yeah, and we have 2 of those, so. So we've got leaves in, so now we're going to do a little bit of work. I'm going to grab my rigger here. We've got berries in here. I like berries. Berries are good. We're going to, and you have a couple of options. You can paint these in, comme ça. If you're feeling energetic, you can paint each one of those berries warm white, or you can do this. Whoops. Sorry, puppy dog.
Okay. You obviously don't want to be down here.
You can take your favorite shade maker, which I've got here. This is a 1/4 inch dot. And I'm going to use the stencil brush. And we're going to put in a nice, perfectly round berry. Look at that. So cool. Just stencil it with a little bit of warm white. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. It's a shortcut, and it works. And it gives you perfect berries every time. And it's a whole lot easier than painting the berries one at a time. Ta-da! Perfect little white berries. So I'm going to dry that. And then we're going to paint flowers. Now, these are a simple 5-petal flower. Somebody asked me what kind of flower it's supposed to be. It could be whatever you want it to be, quite honestly. But just a simple 5-petal flower, nothing over the top. We're going to use a number 5 round, and we're going to put our base color in with Sunset Gold. And we're going to come back to those comma strokes. So these flowers are done with a series of simple comma strokes. And we're going to start with this one up here. So on the left, you're going to have a left turning comma stroke. On the right, a right turning comma stroke. And then in the center, it's going to come straight down. I didn't pull these quite far enough. There we go. So 1, 2, 3. And I start with the one that's furthest back, because this one is in behind that leaf. Just like that. They do not have to be perfect. They do not have to be opaque. So this is what you should get right there. So you're going to paint all 4 of the flowers just like that. 1, 2, 3. Oops. Why did I ever mess that one up? Okay. Now we got one in behind a leaf there, so I'm going to take a little care. What am I missing? There we are. So, pretty straightforward. Still looks a little on the lifeless side, although it's getting there. This is our undercoat for these flowers. And it's super easy. Just don't worry about whether or not they're perfect. The only thing that really is important with these is more the direction of the stroke, just so it creates a pretty petal. Oops. There we go. So I'm going to dry this. Whoa, there goes the chat. Wow. Hi, Patty May. Yes, they are always recorded. You can watch them either on the Tracy Morrow Live Facebook page or on the YouTube channel. Either one. And you can rewatch them as much as you'd like. Is there a substitute for Sunset Gold? You can use saffron yellow. That works beautifully. I know Pam had a question somewhere. I am using a number 5 round for doing these flowers. And this is almost dry. So So we're going to overstroke these flowers. And I did it with this. This is Sunny Day. I really like this yellow. And then I was thinking they'd be so pretty done with either with baby duck as well. Either one of those colors would work well. This one's a little brighter. What size? It's a number 5 round. So I'm going to use a little bit of Sunny Day. I love Sunny Day. It's pretty. It's a soft and delicate yellow. And we're going to overstroke these flowers. And all that means is that we're going to repeat the same process, but we're going to do it with a slightly brighter color. And the thing to remember is that these strokes do not have to be perfect. If some of that base yellow is showing through, that's okay. I like that it leaves a little bits peeking around in the edges. That's good. Whoops. It actually gives them a little more dimension, and it makes the yellow a little bit richer. So it's just a simple overstroke. So just repeating the strokes that you just did. Look how pretty. And it helps keep this yellow bright. I was earlier talking with a fellow painter about the benefits of an underpainting. And this is one of them, is that you have the ability to enhance a color simply by putting a coat of another color underneath it. I often do it with white if I want the colors to be really, really bright. And it, of course, depending on what the color is. I undercoat with white quite frequently, but I also will undercoat with asphaltum, again, depending on what I'm painting and what I'm painting over it. And even for flesh tones, a lot of the time you can use greens or even blues. Flesh tone does not always have to have that pinkish tone to it. So in this particular case, I'm using an underpainting of a golden yellow to help keep these flowers nice and bright. And it's okay if a little bit of that is peeking through or peeking out. So again, just that nice little overstroke. There we are. So we're going to dry this. I'm going to show you how to paint a center. Really simple. There we go. So I have a stencil brush. Ta-da! And I'm going to pick up asphaltum. Ta-da! And I'm going to just stipple a little round center. It does not have to be perfect. It's going to have little fuzzy bits sticking out. That's okay. So I'm just using a stencil brush to make about a 1/2 inch circle in the center of this flower. Easy peasy. And then I've got a smaller stencil brush. We're going to pick up a little bit of that asphaltum and a little bit of orange flame so that I have both colors on the stencil brush. And you're going to just tap till they blend. And then you're going to just stipple the center like so, so that the darker value stays to the bottom and the lighter one stays to the top. So we have a little bit of orange at the top, like so. So we have a highlight at the top of our flower. It's pretty simple center, but we're not done yet. So I'm going to dry this. I'm going to make sure those centers are nice and dry. And then we're going to come back to our angled shader. Now we're going to create a little depth in these petals, and we're going to do that with a little bit of that orange flame. I'm going to blend that, and we're going to put a float. I know I say this all the time, that U-shaped float, the base of the petal where it joins the rest of the flower. And we're going to leave a little space. I like that little space because it gives us a little bit of wiggle room. But it also helps create that sort of cup or that little bowl, that little bend that you see in the petal. If it was just a straight float, it would give you the impression that it was a flat petal. We want it to have a little bit of a cup in there. So I'm leaving that little space at the edge of the petal. So you see? And we're going to do that to all of these petals. Just like that. I like this little cupped effect. When we do the final little step on these flowers, it just increases the look of that little fold, that little cupped version of our flowers. Under these lights, they look a little washed out. But that little tiny bit of that orange really snaps these flowers up. I use these colors a lot in sunflowers because I really like the vibrancy that it gives. And I really think that sunflowers should have that punch, you know. So you can come back in, and any that don't seem to have quite enough oomph to please you, you can just put another quick float in. I'm a fan. I like a little extra. And again, keep in mind, none of these floats have to be absolutely perfect. We're looking for that heat, the irregularities. I like the irregularities. It's all those wonky bits that make things fun and interesting. So I'm going to dry this, and we're going to come over to these berries. And these are fun. I like this technique for painting berries. It gives berries a nice round spherical appearance. I can get paint out of the bottle. Something tells me I need a new bottle of Bahama Blue. There we go. Mine is almost empty. I'm pretty sure I have another one. I hope I have another one. So, berries. Let's talk about berries. I'm a huge fan. I'm going to want to do a berry, but I need a circle maker. Here we go. No, that's not big enough. I'm looking for a circle maker. There, that'll do. Okay. I'll use my chalk pencil. Hey, needs must. My big circle maker is too far away. So, I'm going to use the bottom of a bottle. So, we have a circle. This is going to be our berry. And we're going to use warm white as our base. So I'm just going to quickly put a coat of warm white on our berry. Comme ça. There we go. A little bit of warm white. Now, this is going to be a much larger version of this, obviously. So, to shade our berry, and we're going to do it the same way we're going to do it in the small one. I do it in a larger format like this because it's very hard to see the detail on those little 1/4 inch berries. So we're going to float a shadow onto our berry, and I'm leaving a space. Now on this larger berry, obviously it's going to be a wider space than on the little one. So here's our float. Doesn't show up very well on that under these lights, but our shadow is about 1/8 of an inch in from the edge, so there's just a sliver of white showing, and I'm taking the float to about 50-50, so it's covering about half of this circle. So when I put the start position for my float, it's at this point, and it ends in roughly the same point on the other side. So it's covering about half of that size. So we're going to dry that. And then we're going to tone that shadow, and I'm going to do that with a little bit of asphaltum. So I'm going to blend this out really well. We don't want this color full strength. And I'm going to go directly over top of that first float with the thin asphaltum. Again, I'm leaving that narrow space. So hopefully you'll be able to see this a little bit better. So you can see there's that narrow little space, just a sliver of the base color showing through, the Bahama blue, and then right over top of it, I put a float of asphaltum, thinned asphaltum. And then I'm going to use either warm white or titanium white. We're going to put a float of that on the highlight side, which is the opposite side. And we're going to use it right to the edge and allow that float to overlap the first one just a little. And what it creates gives you a little bit more roundness to it. And then a final highlight is added like that. Trying to find it. So there you go. That's how you paint your berry. Now it's hard to see under these lights. I'm sorry for that. But there you go. That's your berry. So that's the process for painting these ones, these little tiny ones. So start with the Bahama Blue. And again, I like to leave that little space. Of course, on these small berries, it's very difficult to see under these cameras. Little float, leave that little sliver showing. There we go. And we're going to dry this. And then float right over top of that with a little bit of thinned asphaltum. Just a little. Just deepens that shadow a little. And helps give our berry some nice shape. There we go. And then we're going to put a highlight on the opposite side. That little bit of that thinned warm white just brings all of that light out. There we go. So I'm going to dry that, and then I'm going to use a little bit of warm white or titanium white if you've got it handy. And we're going to put our light impact point on the upper right side of each berry. Like so. So we've got nice little berries. So I want to make the centers of these flowers I want to make them stand out a little bit. So I need a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to pick up a little, just a very little bit of lamp black. And we're going to put a float of it at the base of the center, right at the bottom. And it's a little U-shaped float as well. Just like that. Just gives the centers a little lift. Now they've got a little height. So rinse that out. And I'm going to dry this. And now it's time to start adding a few little details. But I want to do a little bit of work in our background. On the tabletop in particular. So I've got a nice little stencil brush. Kind of like the stencil brush for this. We're going to pick up a little bit of that base color that we used in the oh my goodness, tin can. Oh, hello. So a little bit of that color. And then we're going to just lightly, ooh, not too much paint. There we go. Just going to lightly add a highlight back here to the tabletop. Now, when I'm doing this, I don't come right to the edge of the can. I like to leave a little bit of a shadow around the can. And then I gradually let this run out. I'm going to bring a little of it over to the front of the table, just a little. And we're going to use a little of it back here as well. Just to imply a tabletop, that's all. Nothing, no major. It's just a little highlight. And because we're using that tin can, it's very subtle. We're using that color from the tin can, I should say. There we go. And I like that little shadow that stays around things. Doesn't need to come right up to it. Now I thought got a little, where's my eraser? There it is. Okay. Got a little graphite line there that is bugging me because it's not level. That's probably why it's bugging me. So I'm going to take that graphite line out. There we are. And then in that background in here, we're going to have a little bit of light. But before we do that, we're going to do this. Now, I like a stencil in the background. I just think that it needs to be subtle. And lately have been a little bit obsessed with this little, this small stencil. And I'm really liking the more subtle and very dry look. So we're going to use a little bit of this. This is cobblestone or portobello. I grabbed portobello. Wrong color. Cobblestone. They're very close. And I think I better get a clean palette here. Good heavens. Yikes. So, a little bit of cobblestone. We don't need much. We're only going to be using a little bit. And I'm going to grab so we want cobblestone on the stencil brush, but we don't want it super wet. We don't want to have a ton of paint in the stencil brush. And we're going to do this very lightly. And I'm kind of working around things. I don't want to have it absolutely perfect. And I don't want them fully opaque. I want them very subtle. So you can see that I'm keeping them very light, very soft. And then I'm just going to let them fade out completely. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. However, I'm going to go across the top first because I want to keep this all. Here we go. Here we go. Look at that. Oopsie. go. I like the irregularities, the imperfections, I like these things. And as I said, I just want to bring them down and then have them gradually sort of run out. I want them soft and indistinct, like so. So we have, it just sort of sets up a nice little shadow in there. Nice and light. I got a couple a little too opaque up here. So I'm going to take, I've got a big angled shader here, and I need a little bit of that. You can do it with warm white, you can do this with cobblestone, it just needs to be a lighter color. And we're going to put a little highlight on the background right here. So it's just going to be a little swishy, imperfect little highlight on the background. I like the imperfections. Here we go. Oh goodness, what did I get? Oh, I got a little bit of Bahama Blue on my brush. There we are. There we go. There. So I'm going to dry this real quick. I want to blot that because I got a little too much color on there. There we go. So now it's time to start adding all of those fun little details. So we need a little bit of margarita, and we need a little bit of asphaltum, and I've got a little bit of cobblestone. So I'm using 10-aught extra long detail liner, and I'm going to start with the berries. I'm going to bring in a little bit of asphaltum. I want to pick up a little. So we're going to connect these berries with a little bit of asphaltum. Just a simple stem. Don't overthink it. Just to connect the berries together. That's all we really need to do. Little line of asphaltum. You can add a little highlight of cobblestone if you like. And I'm going to grab a little bit of warm white. A little bit. I'm looking to see if I missed a question. Hi, Lucy. So I'm going to thin out a little bit of margarita, and I'm going to add just a touch of warm white to it. It's not really to make it lighter, but to make it just a tad more opaque. So this is our vines and tendrils color. I like my vines and tendrils. We have a pretty one connecting our berry. And then we have some, I don't know what you'd call them, little blades of grass, little fillers. I like fillers. These things just make things look soft. Or softer, I should say. And then that color is also used for this. So make that. We're going to add just a very loose, fine line to the edges of these leaves. They don't even have to be directly on the edge of the leaf. They can go off the leaf. They just help make things a little softer and define these leaves really nicely. So nice little stems. Keep the lines as fine as you possibly can. They don't have to be perfect, but I find that if they're thick, they make the leaves look heavy. So the idea being to keep them nice and thin. Keep them fine. Like so. Easy peasy. Now, I like the fact that this one has a very rustic country feel to it. That appeals to me. Anything with a country theme appeals to me. Farmhouse, that kind of thing. It always has. And this one kind of has that, old style, like a seed packet type look to it too, which appeals on a lot of levels. Sort of that nostalgic thing. There's something about the nostalgic lately that is really working for me. I just love it. So we've got pretty leaves, we've got pretty little grasses. You can tuck more in wherever you like. So whenever something, oh goodness, what did I do to my liner? There it is. Okay. Little twigs and lines, things like that. Just soft, delicate things that fill up space. That's all you really need. So super easy way to do leaves. Hi, Pam. Goodness, everybody's here today. Hi, Linnell. So the flowers get the same treatment as the leaves do. I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring in a little bit of that Sunny Day and a little bit of thinned warm white. Maybe if I get out of the bottle. There we go. So a little bit of Sunny Day on the brush. Whoops. Good grief. And a little bit of warm white. There we go. Thin that out. And we're going to add a nifty little detail to these flowers. Remember the space that we left on these petals? We're going to come back to that comma stroke thing. We're going to press a comma stroke, just a thin one, right on that fold. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And then we're going to bring that color along with a scribbly edge. on the petal. Just like that. So all of those little squiggly outlines that we did on the leaf, we're going to do that on the petals as well. But we're going to start it with that little comma stroke of white. And not every petal is going to get that treatment, but you can see what I mean. Here we go. And I prefer to use, you can do this with white, but it's never a bad idea to kind of mix a little yellow with it, just to keep it from looking a little too bright, if you know what I mean. And it looks a little less hard-edged when you do it this way. So there's that little comma stroke. Squiggly lines everywhere, just softens the flower. And then we've got one flower that is underneath. See this petal? These overlap, so don't forget that when you're doing this line work. And then that way you don't lose that dimension that you worked so hard to build. There we go. So I'm going to dry this, and then we're going to do a little work on the centers and petals of the flowers, because I love doing this. Now, if you're not a fan of using the gel pen, you can stop right now. You don't have to worry about anything more other than a little detail to the center. But I am a big fan of my gel pen. I like the texture it creates on these flowers. So I'm going to grab my gel pen. And around the center of the flower, I like to put little short hash marks as close to the center. So they're more coming off the center than they are on the petal. And as I said, if you're not a fan, or you can do this with a liner brush if you prefer. But I like the texture that this creates for me. Now, you can do the squiggly thing all the way around the outside edge of the petals. You can add as much or as little texture to this as you like. It's entirely up to you. I'm a big fan. I like the sort of scribbly look, but I'm going to forego it for the moment because we're going to do a little bit of shading in a couple of places just to lift some of these flowers. And because this is a water-based ink, I don't want to mess with it. So I'm going to grab a little bit of asphaltum, and we're going to separate and lift off some of these petals right there. Just where they overlap the other one, I'm going to put a little float of asphaltum just to lift them up a little bit. The devil is in the details, as they say. And those little shadows, those tiny little shadows, make a world of difference in how something looks, if it's effective or not. So now these three flowers are separated. So these ones get pushed back and this one gets pushed to the fore. with that tiny little shadow. It's not much, but it makes a huge difference when you put it in. So I'm going to make sure that that is good and dry. And then we're going to take a rigger and a little bit of warm white. If you prefer to use a stylus, by all means, go right ahead and do this. But I like a few little dots on the top edge of my flower, on the center. Remember where that little orange patch was, that little bit of red spice that we put in the highlight at the top of the flower? That is your base, and we're just going to put a few little dots hither thither on there, just for a highlight. Now make sure that this is good and dry, because it's me and I will smear them. So this is my thing. I love doing this bit. I like taking my gel pen. I like the squiggly, irregularities on the outside edge of my petals. But that's a me thing. If you do not like this, then don't do it. It's not necessary, but it is a thing that I like doing. So again, that's a me thing. If you like it, go ahead and do it. But if it's not your cup of tea, then I'm not going to burst into tears if you don't like it. I like it. I just think it just adds a fun little element to this, and I kind of like the irregularities of it. I like sketchy. And that's one of the reasons I like these pens, is the line work that they create is extremely fine. It's a 0.38, so it's very, very fine. So there's no super hard edges, which is another thing I like. I like to see things outlined. I like to see things defined, but I don't want them to look like we took a Sharpie to it, if you know what I mean. So look at our fun little flowers. So now there's nothing left but to paint lettering. Now ordinarily I would shade the lettering first, but because we're on a black background, there really isn't a need to. So I'm going to use a number 2 rigger, a 0 rigger, to do this lettering, and we're going to use warm white as our color. I love warm whites for this. I am going to use a shading color on the lettering. We're going to be using a little bit of Bahama blue. And I do love my rigger. It is great for painting lettering. Hi-ho.
Hello. Lettering.
Yep. So 0 rigger. The thing to remember when you're working with a rigger is that when you load it, flatten the brush out. Pat it out on your surface so that the brush flattens out. It gives you a bit of a chisel edge so that you can open it up, chisel edge, press down, open it up, come back up onto the chisel edge. It's great for doing lettering. So, flatten it out. Oops.
Sure, I get all the duplicates out of here.
I love a rigger. I'm hard pressed. Dynasty actually posted a question the other day. What's your favorite brush? That was a difficult question for me to answer. And I actually ended up coming up with one, but my favorite brushes are a number 2 rigger and a 3/8 angled shader. I like the 3/8 because it fits into everywhere. You can use it for so many different things. And I like my rigger because I can and frequently do so many cool things with it. It's just a fun brush to work with, and it makes lettering so simple.
That's a lot of Lindas.
Yes.
Linda Cook, Linda Deming, Linda Frick, Linda Giesbrecht, Linda Griffith, Linda Martin, Linda Morgan.
Lots of Lindas.
So many Lindas.
This is a forgiving piece to paint. Because it is just basic stroke work for all intents and purposes. So I'm going to dry this. And then I'm going to use one of my Posca pens. I'm kind of obsessed with this font. It's such a cute font. It's very playful, and it's just an easy one to work with, and I'm loving. This is the wrong one. I got new Posca pens the other day. Some new ones in. That's the one I want. I can't tell if that's got paint in it. White tip. No. There it is. Yeah, it's brand new.
Are you using your Joe Sonias to
Always. Always.
with your warm white?
Yep. I use Joe Sonia's with everything. So the Posca pen is just such a great tool for doing this.
There's Linda Safraco.
Another Linda.
Oh, she's on there.
And I think Mary's watching today. Mary, it's Linda's mom.
Is Linda in the safe zone?
Linda is in a safe zone.
Good.
Last I checked, Mary was safe and sound. And Robin is safe and sound. And Lucy is safe and sound. We fretted and worried, but the girls are all safe. So Posca pen is a great tool for doing this type of lettering. It's just so simple. It's like using a giant Sharpie, but it is acrylic paint. Paints very nicely, dries very nicely, and it's compatible with everything that we've already done on here. So we don't have to worry about it smearing or smudging as long as it's dry. Is one on there?
As Truth or Lucy?
That's Lucy.
Lucy who?
Where's Lucy? There she is, Lucy Nut.
Well, it's Lucy Dunant.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on there. Oh, sneaky. We got Truth Shirley set you gray at the bottom there. Lucy Dunant. Okay, now I know who you are. You don't get 2 entries.
So, Now, the fun part is that you can put a border on this or you can leave it as is. That's entirely up to you. When I did the border on the first one, I was kind of pleased with it. And then the more I looked at it, the less I liked it. It's just a me thing. So we're going to add a little bit of shading to this lettering. And because it's such a skinny letter, or a skinny font, it's a little problematic to float in there. So I'm going to use my liner brush and a little bit of Jo Sonia mixed with my Bahama Blue, and we're going to just pull a little bit of Bahama Blue from the bottom up, and we're only going to come up about a third of the way. Just like that.
Jill P. I bought myself a set of Posca pens. Love them.
I love them.
Do they come in an ink? Or are they
I
strictly paint?
I think they're just paint. Interestingly enough, it depends on the label. Sometimes they refer to ink, sometimes they refer to paint. And I think it's a language issue more than anything. It's just lost in translation.
Well, this is pointless.
That's what I mean. Sometimes,
Straight up Japanese.
yeah, that one's in Japanese. Most of them are. You do, however, get a few that are, have an English label attached, but most of the time they're Japanese.
I thought they had to be in English for them to come into Canada.
I thought they had to be both French and English, but what do I know? There we go. So I'm only putting a little of that blue, but 1/3 of the way up. And that little bit of blue is just a little shadow. It just gives this lettering a little bit of weight and a little substance. And it also ties our lettering to our design because I'm picking up the color from those berries. I frequently carry color around. So once I've established a color palette, I tend to utilize those colors in other places throughout the piece. So there we have a little bit of blue at the bottom. So now the letters have a little bit of weight. They're a little more substance and they're a little more grounded to the overall design. So I'm going to dry this really well, and then we're going to erase some graphite lines. We're going to spatter this a little bit, just a little. I like a little bit of spatter. Hey, Charlene. So I'm going to use my Factus Black. I like this on black backgrounds. It removes graphite very nicely, does not smear. And removing the graphite cleans up a whole bunch of little issues. It makes everything look a little smoother. There we go. Just make sure I've got all my graphite lines sorted out. I don't like graphite lines. There we go. So I'm going to give this a light spattering, nothing too over the top. I want it to there we go.
I think it looks better without the border.
I'm thinking it looks better without the border. So I'm going to use just a light spatter because I can and it's my party.
I do what I want.
Yep. I'm the boss of me. So I'm going to dry this really well. I like a little spatter. It just, to me, it just softens things.
It gives it some age too.
And a little age, yep.
It's like distressing.
Yep. So I see a couple of things I want to adjust. And I'm using the term adjust. I'm going to grab my, of course, I put my dry brush in the brush basin. So where's my other dry brush? Here we go. Couple of things. I want to adjust the highlight here. Just a little bit.
Oh, Charlene had a question about splattering.
Splattering, okay.
Splatting. She always gets big blotches.
Too
Any
much.
tips?
Yes. Use a brush with a tighter bristle and less water.
There you go.
So I want to adjust this highlight just a little bit, make it a tad brighter. Just a touch. Doesn't have to be much. This is what I meant by, the ability to come back in and adjust highlights and whatnot is so important. That's better. It needed a little brighter highlight in the middle. And I'm going to grab a little bit of that lamp black. And an angled shader, a little bit. I'm going to blend this out a little bit. I want to, just using the chiseled edge to darken this little detail down here. Just at the edge of the lip on the tin can. Just needed a little darkening. And a little darkening here. So the nice thing is that you can come in and adjust all of these little shadows at any time. Even when you think you're almost finished, don't ever think that you can't come back in and adjust a few things, because you can.
Have you ever seen that comic, The Anatomy of a Tin Can?
No.
No?
No.
Oh, man. The base is called the base, for obvious reasons.
Uh-huh.
The top of the tin can is called the crown.
Okay.
The outside of the tin can is called the barrel.
Okay.
And the inside of the tin can is called the walls.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where all the whoop asses came.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying. Because once they're empty, I'm turning them into vases. So there we go. This is Pickin' Flowers for Mama.
Yeah.
Such a fun piece to paint, and all done with very basic techniques.
Here's your face.
So simple. It's just layering of very basic techniques. Comma strokes, dry brushing, a little bit of shading, and Bob's your Uncle, Sally's your aunt. You have wildflowers.
Yeah.
Fun piece to paint. A lot of fun. So we have, Renee's got the wheel all filled up. And you think? Got everybody on there? We have any latecomers? I can't see the chat. No asphaltum no, I didn't do any this time. I just stuck with the white. And very sparingly. Didn't want to do too much of it.
There it is. Gee. There are a bunch of names on there.
There is.
There's like
260 some.
Nice. So, tons of names on there.
264.
Yep. And out of that 264, 3 of you are going to win a little prize pack courtesy of Tombow USA. We've got some brushes from Dynasty Brush in there as well, all tucked into a little Create bag just for you. The Tombow thing is one of their fabulous mechanical pencils. They've got a limited edition out at the moment. And so we've got one of those for you, plus some beautiful brushes from Dynasty FM. Renee's ready to go. He's got the name tags all set.
Yeah, my Sharpie.
You got Sharpies, so spin that wheel. Janet Demon. Awesome. Miss Janet. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, it's very easy to get your name on the wheel. All you got to do is join the chat, hit the like buttons, the subscribe button, whatever. Just hit all the buttons. And then join our community on here. Come and join us in the chat window and have a little fun. We always have some great giveaways. We've got some really great support for this channel. So, Janet Demon is our first winner. Lorraine, okay, German name. Thurer. Lorraine Thurer. Lots of R's. Lots of R's in that one. And don't forget, head over to the website, click on the little speech bubble in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, and send us your shipping information so that we can get your goodies out to you as soon as possible.
Hey, there's Janet.
Yep. And Karen, what is the class for next Saturday? We're going to be painting something festive. Winter's coming. And last but not least, Carol Eves.
I had to put Tom and Carol in there because she pops up as Tom and sometimes she pops up as Carol. So.
Yep, Tom and Carol. So Carol Eves is our third winner. Thanks so much, you guys. So next weekend, we're painting something festive. We've got a fun little piece for you. I think you're going to enjoy it. Pattern for that will be up tomorrow afternoon, as will the pictures. I just have to glue it all together. So everybody have a great weekend. And to all my fellow Canadians, it is a holiday on Monday. We have a long weekend this weekend for Truth and Reconciliation Day. Everybody have a safe and happy weekend. And to those of you down south in the Eastern Seaboard who just went through Helene, our thoughts are with all of you. And to all of my friends that live down there, oh, I'm so grateful that you're all safe. Thank you for keeping us in the loop. It means a lot to us. So, as always, thanks so much for joining us here every Saturday. We love having you here and spending time with you and painting a little bit.
What?
Not a thing. Not a thing. Your cheese slid off your cracker.
It's Swiss.
I knew
Pet
it.
your dog.
And pet your dog. Goofball. Have a great weekend. Mwah. We love you. Stay safe.